Today's tutorial is on plank position, and we are going to look at how we can modify plank, like coming to our knees, or maybe going up against a wall, or maybe using a chair. We're also going to look at how we can do plank on our knees to build strength, and then some more advanced options for your plank pose. So welcome to this short tutorial. We're going to start on hands and knees, and I am going to walk my hands out until I can come into kneeling plank. And you could have your feet up off the ground, you could have your toes tucked under or your toes flat under the feet on the floor. So here, I want to make sure that my shoulders are over my wrists and that I'm feeling core engagement. The one nice aspect about plank is it builds core strength all the way around your body, and it does so in a fashion that doesn't stress your intervertebral joints. And so this is a really good option to building core strength without having to do crunches. Okay, so this is my kneeling plank. You could stay here, or you could tuck your toes under and try lifting your knees up off the ground. Now I want to press the mat away and dome up my upper back so that my shoulder blades actually come into a little bit of protraction. Okay, so this is our plank position. You could then come back into child's pose and take a little break. Next, we're going to look at kneeling plank. For kneeling plank, I'm going to take one leg out, so I pick up my knee, so I'm not rotating with my knee on the mat. I pick it up, I take my foot out, and this is going to be a little kickstand. And then I plant my hand, spreading my fingers, pressing the mat away, and then lift my arm up towards the sky. Option here is to keep the foot on the ground. Option is to lift the leg up and breathe here. More advanced option is to bring your foot into your hand and kick into your hand and open up the front of your thigh. Taking a deep breath in, you could come out the same way we went in, and then come to the other side. So picking up that knee, taking it out to the side, reaching up. This is a perfect place to start with your side plank. You could lift the foot up, flexing. You could grab the top of the foot, kick into the hand, and open up the front of the chest. Find your gaze point. Breathe. And then bring it back to center and down. So if at this point your wrists are feeling a little bit tired, you could roll them. For people who have really sensitive wrists or have some wrist injury, you can do plank on your forearm, or you can also do plank on your fists. So one option is to take your hands into a fist position, bring them out, and then come into kneeling plank, for example, with the fists. You could actually also do full plank with fists. That's a little bit challenging for me, but pressing the mat away. Okay, bring your knees down and sit back. It's very important that we take breaks and that we take care of the wrists. So one option for side plank is also to come over and onto one hip. So side plank, you could stack your knees, bring your hand underneath your shoulder, and then lift your pelvis up. And so here I'm on both knees, right? My knees are stacked, and I'm in side plank. You could take a deep breath in. Exhale, come back down. We could come over onto our knees and onto the other side. Notice that my thighs are parallel to each other. They're stacked. And that I could bring my knees out a little bit. I'm going to find a comfortable position for my hand so that when I lift up, it feels nice and stable. There's a connection between and a stacking of the weights between my wrist, my elbow, and my shoulder. You might need to play with that a little bit, the position of the hand and its location. So this could be a version of side plank. And then bring it back down. Now we could also do plank on our forearms as an option for wrist injuries or sensitivities in your hands and your wrists. So bringing your elbows down, we want to make sure that we stack the shoulders right over the elbows and then walk the elbows in a little bit. So I'm actually grabbing onto my upper arms with my hands. And then I'm bringing my hands out. I'm going to tuck the little fingers under, and I'm going to see if I can press through my whole forearm. So this is a forearm plank. You could bring your feet back, make sure that you're on your mat when you step back, and then come into forearm plank. Dome up the upper back, protract your shoulders. Option to bring your knees down. So this is a great core strengthener, stabilizing the spine. Bringing your knees up is an option. Shaking sometimes happens in plank position. And then bring it back down. You could also do side plank with your knees stacked on your elbow. So forearm, you could bring your arm up. Notice that my elbow is right underneath my shoulder. And I'm going to see if I can plant my whole hand. If I think I need to put a blanket or some padding underneath my elbow, that is a good thing. But you don't want to put all of your weight into your elbow. You want to make sure that you press through the whole forearm. So here, I could start with my knees bent, taking my feet back, and then lifting up. Now for side body, you could bring your hip down and then lift up again. But remember, there should be no pain in your elbow or in your shoulder. Doing it on the other side, curling over, stacking your knees, lifting your arm up. This is side plank on forearms with knees stacked. Breathe. Okay, let's bring it back down. Come on over. We're going to either come into child's pose or into downward facing dog. I'm going to come into downward facing dog, but you could do child pose if you like. Curling your toes under, planting your whole hand. We're going to lift up and back. Tailbone up to the sky. Breathe here. Now I'm going to show you how to come into full plank from this position. So if you're in child's pose, you could watch, or you could come into this position. So just bringing your shoulders back over your wrists, step your feet back, and then you can drop your knees. So this is another way of coming into a full plank on your hands with your knees down. And you want to lengthen the crown of the head out and keep your gaze a little bit forward. Okay, bringing your knees back up. Let's press back into your downward facing dog. When we do that, we might need to walk our feet in a little bit and shorten the distance between our hands and our feet. Breathe. So you can use downward dog as a starting pose for coming into full plank. And that is the answer to today's tips question for the video, is using down dog to come into full plank by coming over, stepping back, bringing your knees down, and then sitting back onto your heels. Okay, so we're going to talk about side plank. You could bring yourself up. We could come back into plank position. An option is to keep your feet right where they are, so that when I pivot over and onto one side of my body, I can just not stack my feet, but my feet are staggered. And I'm on the outer edge and the inner edge of my foot, respectively. And you could be like right here and you're like, oh no, I need to come out. I could drop my lower knee and then just come back into this kneeling side plank. So let's do that on the other side, coming back into plank position. My feet are hip width apart. I'm going to pivot over to one side and my feet are staggered. And I'm like, oh, I want to bring my knee down. So I could bring my knee down and then just come into side plank kneeling. Okay. Other options. I could not pick up my feet and just pivot on the balls of my feet. So bringing myself into plank position, I could just pivot side to side, and you'll notice that this kind of begins to activate. I'm not picking up my feet, I'm not picking up my hands. And this just begins to activate your side core. This is a really good precursor to doing side plank and building that strength in your side body. We'll bring it back down for a second, sitting back up. Work out your wrists. Side plank plank positions take a lot of oxygen, right? It's really using a huge number of muscles. So it's a great all over the body strength builder. So one option for full plank is to stack your feet. And that perhaps is the hardest one, other than lifting one leg up, which we're not going to do today, but it is an option that you'll see in yoga classes. Okay, so let's come back into our full plank position. I'm going to bring my feet together, and then I'm going to think about shifting my body weight to one arm, and then my feet are stacked. I could drop a knee if I needed to here, or I could just hang out. Bring it back to center. Feet are together for this. So that foot together allows me to stack my feet. I flex them. I engage my core. I breathe. And then you could maybe lift that top leg or not. Okay. Bring it back. Good job. Okay. The last example is a really fun modification, and that is bringing the top foot back and onto the ball of the foot. So actually we'll do two modifications of this. Coming into plank position, coming onto one side, the top foot can step back, and it's really close to my leg actually. It's not way back, and I'm on the ball of my foot and my knee is bent, and I'm opening up my chest. This is kind of like flipping the dog, which they call. It's a side plank variation, but we actually didn't start in downward facing dog. Okay, so let's show it on the other side. Stacking my feet, then step one foot back, up on the ball of my foot. I'm opening my chest up towards the sky a little bit more. Side plank modification. Okay. Other one that is very fun to do is fallen triangle. So in fallen triangle, we can take the foot underneath to come into side plank. So if I'm in downward facing dog, I can step one foot underneath, come in onto the outer arch, and then rotate. And so it's very wide-legged side plank. Breathe. Bring it back to center. Switching to the other side. Feet are hip width apart. Oh, my foot comes underneath. Yes. Outer edge of the foot. Reach the hand up. And I'm sweating now, so full body workout. Breathe. And then bring it back to center. Okay, good job. So remember the question for the pose of the day is that down dog transitioning into plank position and then sitting back and rolling out your wrists. Good job, everyone. So remember, side plank can be done kneeling. Full plank can be done kneeling. And one last thing I wanted to mention is if this was just felt way too intense for you, you can do this against a wall. So if I wanted to do just full on plank against the wall, placing my hands on the wall, I just lean forward. Okay. And I don't have a wall, but I have a stool that I can kind of show you this. I have a big table too that I can do this with. It can't be anything that scoots, so it has to be stable. So plank position, notice that this is essentially plank position, right? I have my hands on the stool. This might be even easier for my wrists because my wrists are not as bent in this position. And I really feel, even in this position, that my core is activated. My stool is a little bit wobbly, so be careful with that. Walls don't wobble, so maybe that's an option. And you can also do, heart melting pose or a version of downward dog from this as well, from a stool, a chair, or the wall. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and please let me know if you have any questions.